Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something deeply fascinating and, honestly, profoundly human. We're talking about the hidden psychological strengths of trauma survivors. You know, we so often think of strength as something loud, right? Like something super visible, a heavy weight being lifted or a loud victory cry. But human resilience, the psychology behind it, tells a totally different story. Today, we're going to decode the silent, unseen ways our brains and behaviors adapt after we've weathered the absolute toughest seasons of our lives.
There's this quote, "Some people smile every day without anyone realizing how much pain they've survived." Man, that's incredibly true, isn't it? Sometimes the strongest people you'll ever meet don't look strong in that traditional sense at all. It might just be the quietest person in the room, carrying these silent battles that change them forever. If the signs we're about to cover sound familiar, well, there's a really good chance you, or maybe someone you love, have survived way more than anyone could ever guess.
Okay, let's dive straight into this. We're looking at 5 distinct signs of this reframe journey: emotional adaptation, comfort and solitude, hyper-awareness, emotional guardedness, and finally, craving peace. Society sometimes mislabels these traits, right? They call them being distant or closed off or just overly sensitive. But research actually shows they aren't flaws at all. They are highly evolved, incredibly effective survival mechanisms.
Let's start with the first sign, which is deeply rooted in science: emotional adaptation. Basically, when someone goes through repeated stress, pain, or just profound disappointment, their mind literally learns to handle pressure differently. You actually become calm in situations that used to completely break you. That panic that once felt inevitable, it just fades away. Surviving deep pain rewires your nervous system to stop overreacting because your baseline for what a disaster actually is has completely shifted.
Think about it like this. Before a period of intense survival, small problems might have ruined your entire day. A flat tire, a rude email, a canceled plan. It felt like the end of the world. But after, you find yourself thinking first. You stay quiet. You don't just react immediately. And it's not because life magically got easier. It's because you've already fought way worse emotional battles and survived them. People might see that silence and think, oh, they just don't care. But the reality is, you've just been forced to become mentally bulletproof.
And it all really boils down to this super powerful internal monologue. If I survived that, I can survive this too. You fundamentally learned that not every problem deserves your energy, not every argument deserves your attention, and absolutely not every storm deserves your fear. The overreacting stops because your mind has this permanent anchor of resilience now. You know your own track record for surviving bad days is literally 100%.
All right, moving on to our second sign, finding peace in solitude. Psychologists have noted that people who go through intense emotional stress often emerge much more emotionally independent. Now, to be clear, this isn't because they suddenly hate people or want to become a hermit. It happens because they've learned exactly how painful disappointment can be. Depending on constant external validation, that just stops. Begging people to stay if they want to leave is a thing of the past. And slowly, the way you spend time alone completely transforms.
So the crucial point here is this: peace is infinitely better than forced connection. While some people might genuinely fear being alone with their thoughts, you've learned how to just sit with yours. Solitude becomes a sanctuary, a place to heal quietly and rebuild yourself in total silence. It transitions from this state of loneliness into a state of profound peace. Because honestly, some of the strongest, most vital healing happens when absolutely nobody is watching. You just become an expert at carrying yourself.
Okay, bringing us to the third sign, which in psychology is known as hyper-awareness. One thing trauma and hardship consistently teach us is heightened observation. After being hurt enough times, you start noticing the tiny, almost invisible changes in human behavior. Why? Well, because the human brain is an incredibly efficient machine, and it's learned to protect itself from future pain. You become remarkably harder to fool, harder to manipulate, and way harder to lie to. It's like you can almost sense bad intentions before anything actually happens.
It's like your brain is constantly running a background scanner. It's detecting micro-shifts in someone's tone of voice, feeling the unspoken energy behind their words, or picking up on behavioral shifts when they suddenly need something from you. And look, this doesn't mean you're a negative person or excessively cynical. It just means life trains you to read people very, very carefully. Once you've experienced deep betrayal or disrespect, your mind starts paying sharp attention to the warning signs it might have innocently ignored back in the day. Which leads us directly into sign number 4, the armor of emotional guardedness. This one is such a fascinating paradox. Someone with this trait might literally be the life of the party. They laugh, they talk normally, they seem perfectly happy. But deep down, there are core parts of themselves they rarely, if ever, show anyone. Psychologists explain that people who experience profound emotional pain protect themselves by becoming deeply private. And it's not to get attention, but because vulnerability was once a highly dangerous thing for them.
Let's move to how this actually builds. It's a clear progression. First, you have the initial painful experience, the event that broke the trust. Step 2,
The brain learns to protect itself, logging the fact that vulnerability leads to pain. And finally, step 3 is the manifestation, emotional guardedness. Because of this process, trusting someone new takes careful thought. You deal with problems silently because carrying the weight alone is familiar territory. People might call you hard to read, but they just don't understand that life taught you not everyone handles your pain with care. So you just stopped giving everyone full access.
And finally, we reach our 5th hidden sign, craving quiet over chaos. This is something so many people overlook. After you survive emotional exhaustion, your priorities fundamentally shift. You begin to truly, deeply value peace. Calmness feels incredibly rare, and simple happiness is never taken for granted again. A quiet morning, a genuine, low-stakes conversation, a calm night completely free of drama, these aren't just nice-to-haves anymore. They become the very foundation you build your life around. A moment where your mind finally feels safe, that's the ultimate prize.
You'll notice that people who haven't suffered much often spend their lives chasing constant, temporary excitement. They want the next thrill, the loudest party, the highest high. But people who have survived hard seasons, their brains actively crave safety and emotional stability above all else. Psychology shows us that after long periods of trying to survive, the brain literally stops seeking temporary spikes of adrenaline and instead seeks a baseline of security. The little things just mean more to you now, because after navigating chaos, a predictable, boring day feels like an absolute gift.
So, the ultimate reward of surviving the hardest battles isn't usually fame or loud recognition. It's this: peace, a quiet morning coffee, a genuine, honest conversation, a calm night. The profound truth here is that surviving hard battles doesn't always make people louder or tougher looking or more aggressive. More often than not, it makes them quieter. It makes them more careful, deeply observant, and emotionally strong in complex, entirely unseen ways.
So, I want to leave you with this question to chew on. Look at your own life, your own reframed journey. If you related to these signs today, there's a strong chance you have already survived moments that could have completely broken you, but somehow you kept going, even when nobody knew how hard it was. So I ask you, if you survived the moments that could have broken you, what quiet strength are you carrying today? Take a moment to recognize it, validate it, and honor it. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning and keep recognizing that incredible strength within.